In this episode, we speak with Vijay Tella, the co-founder and CEO of Workato, a platform for intelligent integration and workflow automation. In 2013, Workato was founded by Vijay Tella, Gautham Viswanathan, and Harish Shetty. Their intention was automating workflows through a no-code platform. Prior to Workato, Vijay was CEO of Qik, a consumer video communications company acquired by Skype. Workato has raised over $400 million and is backed by Battery Ventures, Altimeter, Insight Partners, Norwest, and other notable investors. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of Workato. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Vijay, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Yeah, thank you, RJ. It's great to be here talking to you.
Your company is well known and it has raised a significant amount of capital. It's backed by some of the most notable investors. Maybe where we could kick off is hearing about what Workato does for its clients.
Yeah. So some context for why Workato exists, right? There's just been huge adoption of all these layers of technology, right? Pre-cloud, cloud, SaaS, data technologies, now LLMs. All of these technologies, there's just, huge explosion of, thousands of SaaS applications, for example, right? And so the real challenge that companies have been translating all of that potential to make their vision happen, whatever transformative visions they have for their company happen. It's about how you connect or integrate all of these systems and data and applications and how you can orchestrate them to get the job done for you, right? So Workato is about universally connecting everything in your environment, from data to applications to systems to LLMs, and then be able to orchestrate them in a very transparent way. So business people, not just some technical experts, can understand these orchestrations. You look at them, we call them recipes. You can read them. So Workato is about connecting everything that you have and orchestrating all of those assets and potential to deliver the results you want.
And when does the solution become most relevant for a company? Is it when they are starting to use multiple software solutions and say they're now approaching 5 to 10 different software solutions, and those solutions need to communicate with each other? We then need a system for doing that. And so hence Workato comes in.
That's right. I think when you have enough of a diversity in the amount of applications, whether they could be on-prem or legacy applications that you built on mainframes, combination of, and then some new SaaS applications that you've built, and some data and analytic technologies that you deployed. When you have more of those, there is more of a need. I mean, these are all great point technologies. It's how they work together to get, a company exists to get a job done for their customers. It's how you get the job done that distinguishes you from your competitors. And how you get the job done is how you harness all of your people, processes, and technologies. So if you've invested more in technology in the past, I think you're a good candidate for Workato.
And the ROI is very high and almost immediate when a customer adopts your solution. Is that coming from, say some of the efficiencies, whereas before there may have been like a team that was needed to ensure the translation of the information of what's happening in one app to the other side, but then you're able to automate that part of the process?
Yeah, so I think the value comes in actually 4 dimensions. The first is the bottom line, as you're talking about. There's a lot of manual work being done to, move data from you closed an order in Salesforce, moving that over to SAP, whatever. There's all of this manual work. Automating that, improves your bottom line, right? It reduces cost. The other is top line. I think there's a lot of potential unlocked. There's so much intelligence about your customers, about the signals that, from your customers and what you've done with your product. Most companies haven't realized the potential of what they can do for their customers. So connecting the dots and orchestrating these, that's what digital transformation initiatives are all about, is to really level up the company and where they can go. So that's really about top line, right? Like new business models, new products, new capabilities, new delivery mechanisms, that all of that. That's top line. The third is experience. I think when you have dozens of applications and you're swivel chairing from one application to another to get your, there's so much context switching that people have. Being able to unify the experience, either from an employee point of view or from a customer point of view, customer experience, employee experience. So third is experience. First is bottom line, second is top line. The third is experience. The fourth is risk. I mean, when you have all of these things going on in all these different places, there's a lot of exposure for risks and compliance in your company. So I think a universal integration orchestration capability really brings that all together.
Mm-hmm. And the solution, as you describe it today, this multi-layered impact that it can have on an organization, I'm sure that evolved over time. Where did you start out in the early days when you were conceiving of the idea for Workato? Where did it start?
So I think the idea is not new, right? I was a founder of a company called TIBCO, which was one of the first companies that was expressly built to bring disparate applications and systems together, right? I think what has changed is that the scope of technology, the number of applications, the number of systems, and who's driving the bus. In the old days, in the TIBCO days, it was IT that was deciding which technologies to buy. They would implement it. Now it's the entire team, the business. So I think the idea behind Workato, one of my co-founders, I had done a consumer company, came and told me like, hey, the integration problem that we solved at TIBCO is a real mess now because now there's just like, orders of magnitude more applications and systems. And a lot of that energy and drive is coming from business teams, not just IT. So we need a different type of platform that can scale to support all those applications, but also be more accessible and transparent across the company, not just for some deep IT people. So that's where the idea for Workato came from.
And was it a fairly smooth startup process? I mean, you've brought in some great investors, so it looks like the capital process was there for you, or maybe pre-existing relationships were there. How was the start, given it was your second or maybe other go at starting a company?
Yeah, so we're very familiar with the space, except the environment has changed. So we knew we needed a different type of platform. So we had a total belief in the market and the opportunity there and the value of the problem to solve there and the challenge to solve. So we knew that. So we funded this company ourselves for the first 4 years. We were fortunate to have had multiple IPOs and exits under our belt by the time we got to Workato. So we also wanted to do it right. There's a lot of products out there that solve this problem, but don't do it very well. And we didn't want to join the parade of another product that didn't quite do the job. So we really wanted to take the time to get it right. The mission for us was let's actually solve this integration and automation problem for good at a scale that really meets the market needs. We funded it ourselves, we built it ourselves. And then when we got to a certain point in the market with customers, we also wanted to normalize ourselves from a governance and, building a great long-term brand. So we wanted to bring in some of the really amazing investors that have been on this journey so we can grow, not just from a product point of view, but from a company and a business standpoint.
So by the time you brought in investors, you had been funding it for 4 years and you were already showing a good track record or some good repeat business.
That's right.
Given that you are a highly experienced entrepreneur, what do you find to be the most challenging aspect to scaling a company?
Yeah, there's a lot of playbooks now in Silicon Valley for everything, all aspects of go to market and experiment. It's never been a better time in terms of the technologies that are accessible, but also the playbooks that are available. But I think sometimes we can get caught up in inside baseball in the Valley where we get caught up in all these little playbooks and dynamics. I think it's easy to say, but it's really important to stay super grounded with the customers in the market. There's a lot of tribal knowledge around the problems that you solve that you don't get from this inside baseball stuff. That's something that's really important. And how that translates to is, for example, it translates in a lot of different ways, but a team and organization, for example, I think having some continuity in the team is extremely important because there's a lot of learnings that we get from going and just working with the customers and learning what's going on out there that you won't get from just bringing in somebody from outside. But at the same time, you need people that have the experience of having scaled. When you're 10 million, 1 to 10 is different than 10 to 100, which is different than 100 to 500. So balancing, bringing in some world-class folks that have been on these later stage journeys with continuity, I think you could, over-index on either. That's the challenging part, calibrating that balance.
And so your current founding team, were there many legacy relationships there?
The team that we started the company with and the team that's here now, the folks in the management team, it's a good mix of people that have built amazing companies elsewhere, but have also been in the space and at Workato for a long time as well. So it's a mix of execs. I think that really has worked well for us.
Hmm. Now, when you were in your younger years growing up, did you already show signs of being an entrepreneur?
Well, I did a couple of startups and then I ended up at Oracle for a brief period. It was when I went to Oracle 15 years into my career, that's when I realized that what I really like doing is building things from the beginning, right? Like taking an idea, building a team and making it happen. That's what I was doing the first 15 years of my career. But it was only when I started doing something completely different, the clarity came. That's really what I like to do, and maybe I'm better at than being in these larger companies.
And did you find that just by being in that environment of Silicon Valley, it aided in you being a successful entrepreneur?
It has to have had, right? I think you're surrounded by amazing entrepreneurs, and I've had the great fortune to work with some of my first couple of companies, TIBCO, and a company that TIBCO came out of. CEO there, Vivek Ranadive. We worked with amazing entrepreneurs, and then in some of the other startups, I've had a chance to work with other like great VCs and other entrepreneurs. You learn a lot, but I think it's the actual process of building the companies where you kind of figure things out. You don't learn as much just from talking to people. You learn from doing things, failing, struggling. Struggle is an inherently required part of the process. You're not going to build anything great without struggle.
And where do you spend most of your time these days? Like, what do you think about the most in relation to building the business, to scaling the business?
There's two things. One is from a go-to-market standpoint, getting to this next stage. Our aspirations are to be an independent public company for the long run. The space we are in is fundamentally neutral technology. We feel it is best served by being an independent company that connects to all of these other big ecosystems out there, not being part of one of these ecosystems. So our vision is to build a great long-term company. But the scale and the go-to-market motions and the approach you take globally to build that business requires different things at different stages. So that's one thing that we've been going through a lot over the last year, and there's a transition that we've been going through at Workato to really gear up for this next stage to be $1 billion revenue company. The other thing is culture. I think a big part of companies are people. It's who we are and what we are about that defines what kind of work we do around a product and how we're with each other, and more importantly, how we're with customers. And that one, we're about 800 plus people now. We're not perfect. We have our issues, but over time, we've attracted the kind of people that want to make an impact and are hungry for impact. But growth challenges culture, and the kind of growth we've had, high growth challenges culture even more. On top of that, we were going through this period during the shift in the pandemic work mode. We're out of it now, but all of those changes and growth have challenged, I would say, us. I'm spending a lot of time around just bringing that intentionality to it. In the past, culture happened at Workato by osmosis when we were small. At 800 people, 17 locations around the world, and with most of the people having joined in the pandemic and not having seen each other as much, I think intentionality matters. So that's a big area of focus for us. Those are the two things: go-to-market scaling, and more importantly, scaling the culture.
When we think about scaling the culture, are most of your folks distributed? You mentioned the 17 locations, but are there also folks working from home, or even if they're in a
Yes.
location, it's hybrid?
We've always been, even before the pandemic, we were always very welcoming of people. We wanted to have the best talent in the world, and they could be wherever they are. We also always made sure that we got together enough, right? Even when you were remote, you were in Hawaii or whatever. We used to have Workato houses near our office where people come and stay longer term. So it was an important thing for us to spend time together. And the pandemic really disrupted that mode. So now we're going back to this concept of hub locations where, majority of our employees are, but we are very welcoming of employees anywhere. But there's also intentionality around these things called core weeks that we, as team, we get together in person once a quarter at least and spend some very good quality time, breakfast through dinner, and we go back and we have those relationships to draw upon to as we get the work done.
Mm-hmm. And now, as having been around the block multiple times in terms of like building businesses, do you have a way of where you optimize your own day? Like when you think about what am I going to do today, is there a structure that you follow that you found works well for
Yeah.
you?
I'd say this has not been a strong point for me. I know when I analyze my time, right? So I know I could be a lot more efficient. Somebody recently made this simple suggestion, right? Just be super intentional about what you do in the first hour to 2 hours of your day and the last hour to 2 hours of your day. And I needed that. I think there's a lot of room for distraction, not just at work, right? A lot of personal interests. So organizing all of that, there's a lot of room for improvement for me personally. But a few simple things can help us get much better. I think this idea of organizing your first 2 hours and last 2 hours, that's doable. And just being very intentional about those, the rest will happen. I found that has helped me a lot. This was
Mhm.
just something I started recently.
Did you ever encounter burnout?
So for me, when things get tough, like the last couple of years in the tech, the buying environment has changed. Sometimes it gets frustrating around, like breaking through the noise in the market. These things, it can either bring you down or it can energize you. For me, they're always energizing. It gives me a purpose. I think if things are really good, then there are going to be better people for running the organization. So I think of CEOs as like wartime CEOs and peacetime CEOs. Probably not a great peacetime CEO, right? I think, fortunately right now with all the changes in the market, there's enough challenge. So I love that.
We're coming up on time. I do have two final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Yeah, I think I mentioned one, right? I think the CEO of my first two companies, Vivek, we did things at TIPCO. We invented a new category. We did it in ways nobody had done it before. And he too comes from India now. Like, in those days, the CEOs from my background were not that common. Seeing how he went out building an amazing company and brand and culture has stayed with me. The other person I would say is my boss at Oracle, Thomas Kurian, who runs the CEO of Google Cloud now. He's maybe one of the smartest, if not the smartest person I've ever worked with. I mean, he's just an incredibly high IQ person, but he was also the hardest working exec that I've ever worked with. And that was mind blowing for someone that is that smart to work that hard. I think a sort of a more like an accessible example is Steph Curry, right? He's like the best shooter that ever lived. But he has the hardest and most demanding off-season routine that he does back in North Carolina with a coach. And why would somebody who's like the best that has ever been has to be the one that is working the hardest? That's been an inspiration for me. Nobody is going to outwork me. We're going to be thoughtful about it. We can bring whatever our God's given intelligence we have, but I think just being humble enough to just put in that time is important. So yeah, I would say those two have been quite impactful.
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think one of the things my wife and I have been very passionate about and involved with for a very long time, right? I think when TIPCO went public in 98, we created a family foundation. Essentially, we have a third of our assets in that. Like, the same thing is going to happen with Workato. That's been the best thing I've ever done. I think our passion was giving underprivileged kids a chance, especially girls in India, right? I think our focus was India. Given the size of our foundation, it was very focused in the area, the region of the country that I came from, around education, around girls, and giving the underprivileged kids a chance. I think we're passionate about fairness and equity, and like everybody, every human being deserves a chance to achieve their potential. It's our foundation has been very involved in supporting schools, building schools, supporting orphanages for boys and girls, but there was a stronger emphasis on the girls. They're even more at a disadvantage in these developing countries. So just being involved in that for 20 years has been one of the most rewarding experiences. And I think something that I hope to continue to build upon as we finish out my career.
Fantastic. Well, Vijay, want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, RJ. It was good catching up with you.